talking about big men mentality, can I go off on like a tangent?
Oh,
I should have
ahead.
talked about this earlier,
Go
but
ahead.
on what happened on Friday at lunch.
All right, yeah.
This might take a while because I'm a storyteller at heart.
All right.
So I get my food because it's lunch, and I'm just sitting down, mind my own business. We get about halfway through lunch, and then boom, a strawberry hits my forehead. So naturally, I'm just looking all over the cafeteria trying to find the perpetrator of this. How did a strawberry hit my forehead and I didn't even see it coming? So I'm like looking around, and there's a table sort of in front of me to my left. And they clearly see me looking around. They're like, I think the strawberry came from over there. So they point over there. But I'm not completely sold yet. So I'm still thinking, now he might just be saying that because he's the one that threw it. He don't want no smoke. So I'm now looking mostly to my right, but I'm still like eyeing that table because I don't know for sure. And then you guys, Michael and Caleb and all of that, because this is a real event.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, oh, I think that girl threw it because we've seen her throw another strawberry just now.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like specifically eyeing this girl, but still looking around. And then eventually we make eye contact. Now, why would she be looking in my direction? I just immediately assume that's the motherfucker that threw the strawberry. So naturally, I grab my apple. Now, I don't intend to like baseball that fucking apple at her or nothing. But I'm just looking at her and I say, this apple's got your motherfucking name on it. Right? Just to be like, fuck off,
Mm-hmm.
But she's at her table is actually full. And who I assume to be her boyfriend is sitting next to her. And he doesn't take too kindly to that.
What's he gonna do? You 6'4".
Now, hold on. We're all sitting down.
All right.
So he's like, what the fuck did you just say? So I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, so this guy wants her problem to be his problem. So I stand up. And as I get up, I see a little flicker in his eyes. And I can sense the second thoughts. So I'm like, the fuck you gonna do about it? So I mosey my way on over there. His table's like less than 3 feet from mine, by the way. And I'm like standing less than a foot above him, looking down on his little ass. And he's, of course, still talking shit, but it's hard to talk shit when you're looking up. So he stands up, and he's still looking like a foot up. Because for the viewers at home that are not well acquainted with me, I'm like 6'4", 6'5", 285 pounds. I'm a big-ass motherfucker. And so he's still like, back the fuck up, sit the fuck down, talking his shit.
As you was standing up?
And he actually gets so bold as to push me. But I'm like, in my head, I'm still like, who the fuck are you? So with one arm, I can easily just push him. I just push him back. And now, well, shit. Now his friend wants to get involved. So his friend stands up, actually, and is like, hey, you got a fucking problem? So instinctively, I'm like, shit, there's two of them. I might be barking up the wrong tree right now. It takes me about 2 seconds, and then it clicks in my head. And I say this out loud. Who the fuck are you? Because who is he? What's he going to do to me? Because this motherfucker is still, like, lower than 6 feet tall. I can still beat his ass. I can still body him to the ground.
I imagine Luca just, like, taking his arms and spinning around like a Beyblade as he just knocks down both of these guys 2-on-1.
Yeah, just hammer tosses them across the room.
So he breaks like, one and just picks him up and breaks him across his leg.
So he's like, sit the fuck down. So now I walk over to him. And I'm like, sit the fuck down, little bitch boy. And I give him a little shove. And I can't remember all the details because I was still in the moment. Mm-hmm. But then him and his buddy sit down. And I take that as my cue to go back to my lunch. Because I just won that encounter. I am the king of the swines.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The way you describe it, I can totally because it was like white rage. Everything was gone. It was just you.
Just the moment.
Just in the moment, everything's gone.
I wasn't gonna throw the apple at the bitch.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't gonna do anything.
I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a real problem until he wanted a problem.
Yeah, they wanted a problem.
It's just like the white rage.
And so like the problem is, so it's like, oh, this is my girl. I gotta like show that I'm alpha and I'm gonna beat this guy's ass. And it's like, that's cool and all, but if you can't, then don't act like you will. So like Kevin Hart gets it right, where Kevin Hart says, "If somebody hits my girl, I'm running." Because if he's gonna hit my girl, what the fuck? Imagine what he's gonna do to me. So I'm like, why don't they adopt the same mentality? Because I will body them. I've bodied people before. I can do it again.
Or alternative, get on your girl for throwing strawberries at people.
Yeah, that's it. Even better. Avoid the situation
Yeah,
entirely.
hey,
Don't throw strawberries.
Maybe don't throw strawberries at random ass people in the lunchroom.
Back to the podcast. Last week we got off the rails, but this week it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to stay on topic. We're not going to talk about anime this time, and we're not going to be disappointing for my entire bloodline for generations to come. Of course, I've invited the chief agent of order and following the rules, someone that is completely predictable in any situation at any moment. Luca Lambert.
That's me, baby.
Luca, welcome to the Shy of Six podcast. Well, how does it feel to be on?
Well, it's actually weird because I'm actually a little bit past 6, so...
You are. So when we say, like, shy of 6, we sort of did a workaround on this. Like, the only reason you could not be on this podcast if you were exactly 6 feet tall. Okay. So if I ever grow a quarter inch, I'm not allowed to be on this podcast. Okay. We'll have to stop making it. But since you're like 6'4", it's completely fine.
Okay. That's good. That's good for me.
I'm 3 inches shy of 6, and you're 4 inches shy of 6, so it all works.
So we'll be fine. We'll be fine in general. So based on the story, we were talking a little bit about music, about region. The theme of today's episode is music. We're going to talk about the Grammys, and we're going to talk about an entrepreneur later on that we're all familiar with. So talking about the Grammys, this is an award show happening later in January. I was talking to some people, and the more I talk with people, the more I realize that nobody actually gives a shit about this show. So, like, with respect to that point, we're going to talk about the Grammys anyways, and we're going to mostly do that as, like, a springboard to talk about good music, because there is a lot of good music this year, especially the rap music in particular.
I can see that.
Luca, what are your rap qualifications? When did you start listening to rap and all that?
I started listening to like rap in like freshman year or something, and it started as like small, but then I listened to a few Kendrick Lamar songs, and it was like no going back from there.
Oh yeah.
So I still like branch out.
I completely agree with you.
He like perfected the art form, anyways. So
sorry, this is a side tangent.
Well, 2015 was peak Kendrick. Yeah. So if you were gonna get turned on to rap at any point, it would be then. Yeah. Like he that was To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah. Side tangent. Good Kid, Mad City, or T-Pab?
Oh.
Which one's better?
I mean, is that a question?
I just want. Some people think
T-Pab.
Yeah, some people think Good Kid, Mad City.
Yeah, because they don't understand.
They don't understand.
They're not
like,
intelligent.
T-Pab is like the cornerstone of.
And it has both like cultural and political significance. Yes. It's good music in general. Like, as much as I love Good Kid, Mad City, it's just like most of it's shallow. We're talking about tits and stuff, and I'm like, okay, whatever. But like, but 2015 Kendrick, that was a good time to get on Kendrick. Actually, Kendrick was the reason I sort of got into rap as well. But I fell in love with Kendrick earlier. Like, for me, it was 2011. It was an album called Section 80. I don't know if you've listened to Section 80 by Kendrick Lamar, but it was another album talking about racial injustice. And this was back when, Kendrick was sort of more underground, but like it was ADHD. Do you remember that song in GTA 5? ADHD. That was on Section 80.
I like that song.
And I went out and I was like, this is a good fucking song. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy the shit on iTunes. And ever since then, I've just been really obsessed with Kendrick Lamar and rap by extension. So, talking about the Grammys, bringing it back to the present, we've got a lot of stuff here. And I'm trying to think about how we can make this consumable for people that haven't exactly listened to all this stuff, because admittedly we haven't even listened to all this stuff. There's songs that we haven't gotten to listen to on these albums, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to try and give you a 2 to 3 minute just synopsis of these albums, the artists in general, and at the end of this segment, we'll tell you how we think the albums stack up and who's going to get the Grammy, or at least who deserves to get the Grammy. So the first one that we have on the list that we need to talk about is Revenge of the Dreamers 3. What did you exactly think about going into this? I think that we can both agree that some of the songs on this album are weaker than others, but there's some of them that definitively like slap. They're good. They're good songs, right?
I feel like, sorry, I'm talking more than I typically do, but I feel like this is just kind of like let's have all these rappers hop on one album, because there's like Anderson .Paak. There's Chance the Rapper.
There's
Well, see,
like
Anderson-
20 different dudes.
Yeah, it's a collaboration. But
Yes.
look, Anderson .Paak isn't even a rapper. He's more of an R&B soul kind of guy. So they're bringing in, like, I read something, I did research. They brought in like 200 different artists to work on this one album. I think that's impressive. I think that's deserves a Grammy in itself. But what did you think more specifically about the tracks?
So the album is basically just a bunch of dudes, like 200 artists or something. They just like hop in the studio and they just straight vibe for like an hour, and that's the album. So like the way I see that is I rock with that music if I can like feel the energy. And on a song like Wells Fargo, please pass me the bazooka. Like you can see that they're having a good time, and they portray that through the energy in the song.
Yeah, okay. For the listeners back at home, I'm going to have like a playlist of some of the songs that we mentioned on the podcast that you can listen to later, or just stop listening now, listen to the songs, and then you just for context. But what happened? There's 200 artists. They have a week in Atlanta to record all these songs. By the end of the week, they have 143 songs. Then they trim it down to like 18 or 20 songs. That's how this album was made. And they just kind of took the pick of the litter. They took the best songs. And particularly when you talk about, yes, Wells Fargo, but also Middle Child, there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, there's definitely some good songs on it. But I think where I really got disinterested in it was when there was one song where I couldn't tell if it was a song or like a skit where they were like, "Man, we're not rapping, we're smoking." This is a smoke session. I got really disinterested. I was not rocking with it because I didn't know if there was like just skitting around or if it was like.
So are you not into skits when it comes?
No,
to
I do
albums?
skits, but that was like a 3-minute long skit.
It wasn't a good skit, admittedly. So, I mean, that's sort of the problem. I feel like this album is sort of inconsistent when you talk about what's a good song, what's a bad song. There are definitely good songs on this album, but by the time, you get to the end, you're actually thinking about what's the good stuff, what's the bad stuff, what can I take out without even missing it. So, that's Revenge of the Dreamers 3. We're going to move on to one that I know Luca loves. This one's called Igor, and it's by Tyler, the Creator. What were your initial thoughts? I know that I listened to it the first time, and I didn't think much of it, but listening back to it 3 or 4 times, I actually have a more formulated opinion. What the first time you listened to this, what were you thinking about
The
Igor?
first time I listened to it was actually like 12 o'clock when it dropped, the day it dropped.
Yeah.
And I was just laying in bed. I was tired. I honestly didn't even care. And I was not interested. I was like, oh, here's a good song. I'm not really going to listen to the rest of it that much. And then, like, a few days later, I replayed the album. And I was like, ooh, I'm kind of rocking with it. And I did that again. And it just kept getting better. And then, of course, I went to the concert in October.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like, a great time. It was great.
Now, this is the type of album that you have to listen to from beginning to end to really be able to understand
You get
the premise.
that cohesive story.
Yeah, it's a narrative, right? It's a story that's being told by Tyler, Creator, about a love triangle, right?
Yeah.
So it's Tyler. He's gay, by the way, or at least bisexual. Did you get that through the?
Yeah, he definitely came out as gay on Flower Boy.
Yeah, but he's kind of gay. And there's this love triangle. He's into this dude, but this dude is like dating another girl.
Him and this guy were like seeing each other, and then they kind of like stopped, and the other guy is into a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And Igor is like feeling like an Igor.
Yeah, I mean, like Igor, angry, gothic. So you see from beginning to end, Tyler like adopts different personas, right? At first, he's infatuated. You know, that's the early songs. By the middle, he gets obsessed to the point where he's conspiring to get this girl out of the picture by buying a gun and,
of course,
thinking about shooting the girl.
Got the
right?
totally on him.
Yeah, a boy with a gun, if you will. And by the end, he's sort of coming to terms with the fact that he probably can't get this dude.
And he's wondering if they're still friends. So there's development that happens through this narrative, and like it took me 3 or 4 times to really be able to get everything out of this album. But I really thought that this one stood out from the rest, because I mean the rest of them, good songs, not telling a story as much. Yeah, it's a rap album, but it's mostly singing, and it has a bunch of, it's like experimental like sounds, like a lot of synths and stuff. So it's definitely it's hard to get into.
What struck me, the first 20 seconds was just like a white note, just like 20 seconds. But like that's what turned me off at first. I was listening to it the first time. I was like, this is a funk album. You know, it's kind of
he
cool.
don't know what he's doing. He's lost his damn mind.
Yeah. Luca doesn't know what he's talking about. But given 3 or 4 more listens, I've come to appreciate this album.
Yeah, and it's so like far. It's such a far cast from like Goblin and like Wolf.
Well, it's like a 10-year transition.
Yeah, it's so different from like even Flower Boy. Flower Boy's way different from.
There's a lot of people. There's like 3 different Tyler fans. There's the ones that only listen to Flower Boy and Igor. There's the one that only listen to Goblin and Wolf, and then there's the ones that just like kind of like listen to all of them. And of course, you got the ones that are like the ones that listen to Goblin. They're like, Tyler done switched up on the game. Yeah. He used to be so edgy. I remember you couldn't go to his concerts, and he was starting riots, and it was great. What is this? He's in love? Gotta cut that out.
Yeah, it was, and I think it's awesome. Cherry Bomb wasn't that good.
Cut that one out. Cut that out.
Cherry Bomb was
forget about that one. I like Smuckers. That was about it.
Cherry Bomb wasn't that good, but like I feel like it shows like actual growth because he goes from like Goblin and Wolf to Flower Boy, which is like an in between Goblin and Wolf.
So like the best way I can describe it is in Goblin, he's like, I fucking hate homosexuals. And in Flower Boy and Igor, he's like, what if I am the homosexual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the next album that we're going to talk about, it's sort of the next closest thing that we have to an example where the artist is sort of undergoing like a transition, but less so in the album and more so from his previous work. We're talking about The Lost Boy by YBN Cordae.
Love that album.
Now, I was doing my research on this guy, and I found an article courtesy of Pitchfork that sort of like describes his transition from gamer to Grammy nominee. So I'm going to start something called a reading series. This is the Sauce Reading Series, episode 1. The YBN crew's origin story is already the stuff of internet legend. Nick Simmons was born in Birmingham and met Jay Bradley of Galveston while playing Grand Theft Auto 5. They bonded out of a shared love for rap music and live streaming video games, eventually recording their first freestyle in the Xbox Live group chat. So, I really respect the hustle. These guys were probably like running over pedestrians in cars, going to the strip club in Grand Theft Auto 5, and these guys were just slamming out record after record. So like these guys are just homegrown Zoomers, and I think that we could all appreciate that, right?
It's actually it's funny how I first started listening to this album because I was sitting at the breakfast table in the morning, and CJ, he's a sophomore, a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. He goes, "Oh, I'm working on this project for music appreciation." I'm like, "Oh, what song are you using?" Because he was using a song. He's like, "Oh, it's a song from YBN Corday's album." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, he's got 3 letters in his name, YBN. He's just like NBA Youngboy. He's trash. Not going to listen to it." And he's like, "It's a good album." And I'm like, "You know what?" And so my other friend was like, "It's a good album. You can't get mad at him." I was like, "Okay." So I went home and I listened to it. I was like, "Wait, now hold on. This might be a good album. This might be a good album." And so that's how I started listening to it. I thought he was a joker because he put YBN in his name, just like Youngboy never broke again.
Looks can be deceiving. And there's certainly a lot of great songs. The ones that I really liked is R&P, which stands for something that I can't really say, and Gonna Make It, Bad Idea. R&P especially, it had a feature from Anderson .Paak, who we know or we don't know as sort of a soul artist, right? So I think a theme that we see across the board is we see rap artists more willing to integrate a tradition of older culture, older American culture. And I think that America, we're appreciating that, right? Bad Idea. I think that one had
Chance the Rapper.
Chance the Rapper. I liked that one,
which is actually really good because I think his feature on that was good, which is very different from his album he released, which is
I hear that one's garbage.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
One of the worst things I've ever listened
to. Quote Chance the Rapper, "I'm smoking green cauliflower. That is broccoli. Get out of here. I'm done with you."
And the lyric, I'm probably going to cut this out, but the lyric, and my friend Sasha, I love him dearly, and he listens to this song.
Is it Hot Shower?
Hot Shower.
The lyric, "I just called the plug, but his phone was unplugged."
Dude!
Plug with plug, and then proceeded to yell, "Dude!"
Dude!
For the rest of the song.
Bro.
It's one of the worst rap albums I've ever listened to.
It was actually, I saw they made a music video and threw the baby on that track. And actually, in the music video, the baby spends like half the time in the courthouse dressed up. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said, "I'm going to dress up like a Republican and get some head from a white man's daughter." And if that ain't black excellence, I don't know what it is. Like, go, man.
We love black excellence. All right, so the next one, we're going to get to the lower tier albums, because I think there's a definite like tier system that we could adopt for these albums. We've got tier 1. Maybe there's 3 tiers, but I'm going to put them in 2 tiers. These first 3 that we've talked about, and these next 2 that we're going to talk about now. So this is 21 Savage's album. This is I Am over I Was.
I am greater than I was.
Yeah. And there's some parts of this album that, we're redeeming. There's a particular bar that he drops that makes him seem more like a philosopher than a rapper. This was his song "Ball Without You," and I thought this one was actually insightful. I got butterflies when he said this.
Oh, butterflies.
Yeah. "I'd rather have loyalty than love, 'cause love really don't mean jack. See, love is just a feeling. You can still love somebody and still stab them in the back. It don't take much to love. You can still love somebody without being attached. See, loyalty is an action. You can love and hate me and still have my back." So, I mean, that was one thing that I thought was insightful, but the rest of it was just consistently mediocre for me.
It was just 21 Savage.
It was 21 Savage.
It was just his average stuff with like that one like good stroke of lyricism that he had, but the rest was just 21.
Yeah, that's my problem with 21, right? Like he'll have these songs and then he has to fill up every second of music. There's no breathing room whatsoever. It's all ad-libs.
21. Say a line, shoot him.
Yeah. And that's what I hate. There's no downtime.
He's been doing that since like 2016 Cypher. He was other people were doing the rap. 21.
All right, so this one is sort of towards the bottom of the list. I really don't want to talk about this one anymore. The next one is Championships by Meek Mill. This one I thought was better than I Was. What did you think?
I haven't listened to it.
You haven't listened to it? You've listened to songs from it though, right?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. So I'll take up the mantle of this.
Okay.
This is is sort of a political sort of work. So the thing about Meek Mill is he went to jail for 2 years because he ignored like some parole thing, and he came out and he was like, I guess I'm battle hardened now. Let me just rap about the justice system.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. You know who does? Kodak Black. He's probably been in jail 20 times. You heard he gave that man a hernia? He gave a security guard a hernia because he grabbed onto his nuts and actually would not let go for like 20 minutes. So the security guard actually had to go to the hospital for a hernia. And of course Kodak Black was on Instagram. I don't even know who posted it or who like explained the situation on Instagram because he was in jail. But they were like, I was off of a substance that had been laced. And like, yeah, I believe it. You was grabbing his nuts. Like, tell me how you're innocent.
Free my man Kodak. He don't deserve this.
He definitely deserves it.
No, what are you talking about?
Who knows the most? You know who knows the most about the justice system is Bobby Shmurda.
Oh, he's getting out like this year.
Bobby Shmurda knows the most. Like if Bobby Shmurda gets out and doesn't drop anything, it's gonna be the
Streets is done.
The biggest
tragedy of like the entire year.
You know who else is dropping stuff this year though? Kendrick says he's dropping something early 2020.
Oh,
yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, I read that online somewhere, but you know, that I'm looking forward to that. So we don't have much to say about Championships. Most of us haven't listened to us. I've listened to it. I listened to
like
twice.
One song, and I was like, all right, this ain't for me.
It's just normal Meek Mill.
Yeah, this isn't.
Oh, actually, something that went under the radar that nobody talked about, because I'll tell you what, nobody cares. Kanye West released another album on Christmas Day.
What?
But it was with the Sunday service choir.
Oh, you know, I think I saw a video.
It's something. I think it says. Yeah. I think it's called God is King or something. So he's got Jesus is King. I think the other one is God is Lord or something like that. Something weird.
See, Kanye be like releasing 12-minute albums nowadays and calling those albums. So shut up, Kanye. Shut up, Kanye.
Like, Jesus is King was all right, but there's like 3 songs on there that are worth listening to.
No, yeah, you know, Kenny's sax solo.
Kenny G.
Yeah, Kenny G. Yeah. I liked that album. It was really short, but I liked that album.
Well, actually, it was like a lot of mediocre stuff with which if the album is shorter than 30 minutes, that's not gonna cut.
That's
it.
inexcusable.
Because like Ye was like 30 minutes, but it clearly had a lot more time put into it than Jesus is King. Jesus is King felt so unfinished on the first listen.
So
yeah, I would have rather he not drop it for another year.
and just stop lying about albums. Just stop lying.
Just like just don't release it if it's not finished. Like I can totally wait for a banger of an album.
If he drops another 808s and Heartbreak, then we're in business. Another Twisted Fantasy, Life of Pablo, we're cooking. Yeah. We're cooking.
But if you just are like, oh, I've got something in the works, like, and you
we're not cooking, we're microwaving.
Yeah, like if you got something in the works and you've only got one song ready, like that's
come on, man.
That's on you. Like just tell us you got something.
He gonna release the whole track list, but only one of them's finished.
Yeah. So I gotta rein this back in because now we're just trashing Kanye. We're talking about Kendrick. We're talking about the Grammys because everybody cares about the Grammys, right? So many people.
Everyone.
So, Luca, I want you to flip over that note card that I gave you. We're going to. There's a marker right there. We're gonna list the albums according to how we like them, just 1 through 5, and I'm gonna flip them around and we'll show each other what we got. I'm sorry, Brody, that I didn't get you one. No, that's my bad.
I'll just take a picture.
All right, we'll flip them. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, you know that's what I expected.
That ain't bad. That ain't bad.
So, Luca? What do you have? I've
got Igor as number 1, Lost Boy as 2, with J. Cole is 3. I'm not gonna say the whole thing. And 21 Savage for number 4, and Meek Mill on number 5.
All right. Well, I got Revenge of the Dreamers for 1. I got Igor 2, Lost Boy 3, and the rest doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. So, in a world that makes sense, I think that Igor, these top 3, they deserve it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it'll probably go. That's how the Grammys will shake down. But how I think it's actually going to work is I think Revenge of the Dreamers gets the Grammy because it's a big collab project.
Big collaboration. Big name. J. Cole?
J. Cole. That's how I think it's going to shake down. But obviously, you think that Igor should get the Grammy, right?
I do think it should, but I don't know if it will because it's the Grammys.
So how would you make an argument to all these white people that are running the whole?
All these white people that still worship Post Malone.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started.
Like, a side tangent about Post Malone. First album, pretty good.
I liked it.
First album was solid. I was like, all right, let's see where he takes it. Didn't take it anywhere.
Second one, didn't even bother listening to the third one. Didn't care.
So, I guess that's the Grammys, guys. We've got the rap albums. Only 3 of them are good, guys. Whoever's in charge of doing this, you need to get better albums next year, just across the board. But I've also wanted to talk about somebody else that's in the music biz.
Somebody special?
Someone special. I want to talk about culture. I want to talk about a real American entrepreneur.
Okay.
So these days, am I wrong when I say it's like easy to become cynical, disillusioned by like the state of our culture and like how stagnant it's become in the last decade? Would you say that's something that's fair?
I think it's changed the most in the past decade, but yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, shit, I don't know if y'all noticed, but shit's really changed the last 3 years ever since we got Donnie T in. Like, we brought in a new era of culture. Things are really different now.
Emo trap is like one of the biggest things. Yeah. It's like the biggest wave right now.
Not to mention fucking K-pop. That shit blew up. That shit blew up. Don't get me
started on K-pop.
That shit blew up, man.
Don't get me started.
So...
Hey, bro, don't alienate the audience.
Of course, it's easy. It's easy to look at shit like K-pop and like other like abominations upon our culture, and then just say, Iran, you need to explode us right now. You need to just, if you got any nukes that you've been refining, you just need to drop them right now. Like, end it. But I think there's a single reason that our culture is still salient. There's still some merits to our culture, and I'm talking about competitive eater, rapper, and businessman BadlandsChugs.
Badlands Booker.
Yes, yeah. So how did you come across this guy?
How did I come across him? I think I was scrolling through the gram on the patented Luca gram, and I came across like he was already going viral with like memes and stuff on Twitter, where it was like it'd be like me after the urine check at the doctor's, and it's like, oh no, the doctor after my urine test, and he's just chugging something
throwing
yellow.
Back the Gatorade. Yeah.
Just something like that. And I was like, who is this guy? So I had to like look him up, like fat black dude that chugs. And I came across BadlandsChugs, and I instantly just binge watched all his videos because it's just
good content. It's good content.
It's so just entertaining. I want to watch more. I want to see this man excel.
Now, talking about black excellence, I think BadlandsChugs is he is black excellence.
It's a good example.
So let me just for the sake of our audience, I'm going to list off some of BadlandsChugs' records. He has consumed 9.5 pounds of peas in 12 minutes. Once, he ate 3 raw onions in 1 minute. Another time,
can't even do one.
He drank an entire gallon of beef broth in 53 seconds. So this guy is filthy. He's an animal. I love him. I love him to death.
Did you know? I think it was the Jimmy Kimmel show. He was on it one time.
He was on the Jimmy Kimmel show?
I think it was the Jimmy Kimmel show. I can't remember if that's exactly true, but he was on the talk show. It was him. And there's another guest, and I think it was Jimmy Kimmel because he kept like making fat jokes that were just not funny. And so the other guest felt like he looked like he had been robbed of his like spotlight by some fat ass that just eats. And the way they brought Badlands on was he just walked on with like an entire like assortment of like donuts and food and stuff. And the thing was he was gonna eat that in like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about how impressive the onion thing is?
3 raw onions. Like, and look, I have a reading series on that too, so we'll get to that in a moment.
But like, I can't even eat an apple. Like a sweet fruit.
It takes me longer than a minute. I like to take my time.
And he can eat onions that quickly.
That's disgusting.
3 onions that quickly is like.
Have you seen him?
So
have you seen him drink like 4 liters of eggnog?
Oh yes, I did see that.
Eggnog is so thick. How does he do that?
Like almost pudding. So he destroys this.
And it's his attitude.
So
He's like, enough talk. And he does the first boot. And then for the next boot, he's like hyping himself up.
Yes.
Just deeds.
Yeah. I'm sure like if he like really took the effort and then like didn't need to hype himself up, because like he spends like 15 seconds before another DOS.
Oh, but
he can get that down in 30 seconds. 30 seconds easy.
But you know how hard that is,
it's
though?
like
he's already full.
He's taking so much on that he's like, I don't care about this.
And it's the technique. He's got the technique too. He go.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to the onion thing that Brody mentioned. You know, like how hard it is to eat 3 raw onions in a minute. He had a mentor. Somebody that he went to, like a guru at the top of like the Himalayas that taught him how to eat raw onions. And his name was Eric Seigman. Another Eric, a fellow Eric. I have another reading series, 2 reading series, 1 episode. This is interesting. An article from 2004. Eric Badlands Booker of New York will have a showdown with Lahaina champion Eric Seigman, the perennial Onion King. They have a label for this. The Onion King. At the 15th annual Whalers Village Maui Onion Festival this weekend. I don't think that's a real place.
There's no way. It's like Djibouti City, Djibouti. It can't be real.
A member of the International Federation of Competitive Eating with a master ranking, Booker holds the world record in donut eating, 48 in 8 minutes, and corned beef hash, 2 pounds in 2 minutes.
it's the most vague food. Like corned beef hash.
That's 3 different things. Shut up. That's 3 different things.
Who thinks to like competitively eat and chooses corned beef hash?
And peas.
And peas.
Like
9.5 pounds, 12 minutes.
9.5 pounds of peas.
Imagine on the toilet after that, bro.
We're gonna get to the origin story here because but he wasn't always a natural born killer. So he learned about the Maui Festival, number 8 among all eating contests globally, while watching the Travel Channel. So, he was probably watching like Man vs. Food, and he was like, "Shit, I gotta go there. I gotta go to the."
No, it was probably like
He said, Booker said, "I thought, wow, it looks like some contest. It's not an easy thing to eat onions. I love a challenge," Booker said. So he meets this guy named Eric Seigman at the National Glutton Bowl. He asked Seigman how he ate the onions without dissolving into tears. Seigman told him, "You just gotta eat them.
Just eat them, bro.
You just gotta eat them."
Just eat them.
To which Booker said, "So I think I got a shot." So
I can't imagine.
This is like your professional job.
James, like, hey man, how do you eat these onions like this? You just gotta eat them.
You just gotta eat them.
I think I can do it.
So since he met this mentor, he's entered this contest every year for the sake of winning the year's supply of hot dogs.
Wait. So I'll get back to the year's supply of hot dog and hot dog water.
Of course.
But when he's eating these 3 onions, does he like bite them like an apple?
I've got something
Just
about
munch into it.
I've got something about how Booker trains, because there was a lot on his Wikipedia page about how he actually goes about eating this much. From the Wikipedia page, Booker trains for competitions by trying to stretch his stomach and developing jaw strength. He eats large amounts of fruits and vegetables and drinks a gallon of water in one sitting in order to stretch his stomach. He chews over 20 pieces of gum at a time to develop jaw strength. He maintains that competitive eating is a healthy sport, and he's lost tons of weight since he began competing.
He lost weight?
I read about this. He lost 50 pounds since he started competitive eating.
Oh my God.
Well, that's not a very large portion for him.
I know, he's 400 pounds, but he's lost weight.
With all due respect, it's still not like a large portion compared to the normal human. He's just built.
So I mean, that's how he does it. But like, we look at it and we're like, why? Why does he do this? Simple reason: he wanted a year's supply of hot dogs. So because he won this onion eating competition, they gave him 460 sausage links that weighed 60 pounds. He ended up having to buy a bigger refrigerator to hold the hot dogs. So
he lost money in the investment.
Yeah.
Wait, he was eating hot dogs for like the entire year? Just like every dinner he eats hot dogs?
Who's gonna eat 60 pounds of hot dogs by the end of the year? Who?
You got guests over and they're like, hot dogs again? Yes, sir.
So, practicing for this competition, of course, they aren't sweet. And it caused quite a bit of crying. So he bought from the Maui. So his eyes wouldn't tear so much. Maui would be his first onion eating competition, but he says he won't miss it for the world. So, in preparation for this onion eating contest, Booker took a few days to figure out what would be the best way to eat the onion. Should I cut it in quarters? Should I cut it in half? Or should I just gnaw at it? I figured out what works for me. And pretty soon, his son was videotaping the different techniques. Can you imagine for a second, you had spawn with some woman that you had known for years, and then eventually when he grew up to be mature, you say, "Son, take the camcorder. I need you to record me doing."
I need to try the different methods of eating onions as fast as possible.
So, I imagine he does this. He did this like 5 times a day. He had to do like 5 different takes. So, practicing on non-Maui onions, which apparently are not sweet, it caused quite a bit of crying. And ever since then, he's been an eating sensation. So, this is sort of the origin story. This is an article from 2004. Since then, he's grown into an internet sensation.
He's been a record holder since like 97.
This guy's been around for decades. This guy's been a hustler. So I'm sure that Jimmy Fallon show or whatever, Jimmy Kimmel, that was like a decade ago. So this guy has spent years building up his internet profile, and we're just now digging it up. Yeah. So this guy is 50 years old.
He's 50.
He is 50 years old. He was born in 1969. So.
Oh my God.
He's like a competitive eater, a subway conductor, and a rapper.
He's a subway conductor?
Yeah, he's a subway
multifaceted. And that's a good point, because if you're listening at home, you're like, I thought this was a music podcast. Why are we talking about a professional eater?
Because he raps.
Guys, he's a rapper.
Search him up. Badlands Booker on Spotify. Not
and
sponsored.
I looked it up, and he's got like 8 different albums, and one of his albums is called Big Man Mentality.
Yeah.
Which I think, Luca, you can relate to Big Man Mentality.
I can't relate to Big Man Mentality.
There's a sequel. There's 2 of them. There's Big Man Mentality 1 and Big Man Mentality 2.
It shows the evolution of the Big Man Mentality.
So, before I get into this, how are we doing on time?
43:38.
43:48. Okay, so I wanted to read you excerpts from the Big Man Mentality, a song called "Chug Dat Drink." My stomach is elastic. Chuggernaut, my stomach is mad big like Juggernaut. Liquidator, huh? It's not a game like Sega, Big smoke in it every single way. You picked the wrong house, fool. Time to learn today. They had a San Andreas reference. That's a San Andreas reference. That's baller. I love that. And it continues. This is for my dudes that up and chug full bottles. Guzzle leave you puzzled, man. Contents hollow. Gulp fluid ounces, coolers, fountains. On YouTube, getting mad views by the thousands. If you can drink it, I dissipate it by the gallon.
Dang, he's got some flow going there.
He's got talent. And I imagine that he's perfected it in the decades that he's spent just...
Of course, it's about professionally...
It's such a niche topic. It's such a niche topic. He's just resigned himself to, the corner of the internet. But he's amassed such a cult following. Guys... I want to adopt him into the SOS canon. I'd like to think that we have our own cast of characters.
If we can get a bust of Badlands.
Yes.
Badlands, if you're listening to this, you're invited to the podcast. We'll give you your own episode.
We'll get BadlandsChugs and Luca on the same episode.
Oh my god.
That'd be inspiring for me.
Since you're on the episode, we talk about Badlands.
Big body meets big man.
This is the start of the Badlands lore on the SOS podcast.
No.
We've got to have, if we ever get Badlands, which is an amazing dream to have, to get him on the podcast.
That'd be a dream come true.
We've got to have Luca.
Got it. All right. And it all started with a strawberry, folks. So we need to do a little bit of an outro here because we're getting to the end of our recording sesh. Do you have any passing thoughts on the state of the world? Anything to say to the troops?
To the troops?
To the troops.
To the troops. The country you're fighting for doesn't really care about you. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. If we really cared, we would have bombed them and left. So, I mean, sorry, troops. For my other troops, my aspiring brothers, love is dead. She's not texting you back because she's not thinking about you. She's not busy. She just doesn't care.
All right, we're gonna end the episode on that note. Stay tuned tomorrow, next week, and we'll be recording a political podcast.
Ooh.
So that might be dangerous.
With the Bernie posters up. In
the
studio.
Yeah.
We've got both sides.
We got Mr. Trump there.
They do have Trump up there.
Yeah. So
is that Obunga?
That might be Obunga. All right. So we'll see you next week, folks.
And next week we will have far and away a much better recording setup, and I'm very excited because I have new toys to play with, and it'll be supreme. We'll have to get Luca back on when we have the actual.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. When we get BadlandsChugs too.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
So stay tuned, folks. There's a lot more to come. So, a tradition that we have on the show, of course, we've only shot one episode, but we're going to call it a tradition, is we try to start with a cool story, something that happened to us during the week. Of course, I've got a story, but if you have a story that you want to share, either of you guys, we'll start out with that.
So this is within the last 7 days?
Yeah, within the last 7 days or so.
Well, yesterday was region band auditions.
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
of
we
course,
can talk about that.
Yeah, I played the tuba.
Uh-huh.
So there's not a particularly large amount of competition.
Yeah.
But some of it is like actually good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, so I go to the audition, and I actually show up like an hour before I should have showed up or something.
Oh,
I was scheduled for 5:20. I showed up at 4:00.
Mm-hmm.
And I was convinced that my scales sucked, so I was gonna practice my scales, do my thing, and whatever.
All right, this is my thing with the region audition. I'll tell you about the scales. I walked in there. I've got another recurring character in the SOS universe. One of the people that's doing it at the region thing is like Karen. Again, Just like a blonde-haired woman, 5'4", giving me the stank eye, and I go in there, I play my scales, and I mess up the top note, like 2 octaves B flat, and behind the black curtain, I hear them snickering. I hear them laughing at me, man. I'm just playing my scales and they're laughing at me. It's not cool. It's not cool, but no, keep going.
So, anyways, so time comes around for my audition. I go there. I'm like 15 minutes early because you're supposed to show up 10 minutes early, but they normally let you go early. Anyways, so showed up at like 5:05. And there was a person in front of me, and that's okay. So I actually go into the room at around like 5:22, right? Mm-hmm. And then as soon as I walk in, the guy who like brought me in looks at the tuba and sees that there's a big clump of paper over the spit valve. And he's like, oh, it'll probably sound better with a cork instead of that paper. And of course, I'm not allowed to talk. And he's like, you can go get a cork. There's a repair guy in the lobby. Just go talk to him. He'll probably give you a cork. Get rid of that paper. We'll have you all set. And I can't talk, so I just like point at the ground. Like, should I go now? He's like, yeah, go now. We'll put a pause on this. So I go, and I see the repair guy.
This is a Chekhov's gun. We'll be back. We'll be hearing about this again.
So I show up at the repair guy with the paper, and of course, he's already working with somebody. Well, they have a contrabass clarinet. So he spends the next 25 minutes working with this clarinet. And then he looks at me, he's like, all right, what's the problem? And I'm like, oh, well, I need a cork. So I take the paper out, and he looks at it. He says, there's already a cork in there. So he takes like a little flame, heats it up, and he's like, he checks it, and he's like, oh, you're good to go.
What, a little flame? He's got like a little lighter?
He's got a little flame. He heated it up. So I go back to the room. I'm mad. My mom's like, hey, do you want to go warm up? Nah, don't care. So I'm like mad because that was like the biggest waste of my time in the past month. And so I show up. I get back to the room. I got to wait like another 4 minutes for Sarah to finish her audition. Then they throw me in there. And I start my audition, and I mess up some scales. I do whatever. But the solo, I start the solo.
Oh, my God.
And I just played a completely wrong third note and restart the bitch, right?
Yeah.
Start right over. Uh-huh. And so I'm like, hey, that wasn't even good when I leave the place. And I was expecting to, I don't know, get like 8th chair or something. Well, today, they sent out the email for Allstate callbacks, and my motherfucking name is on it. And I do not want to go do that. I did better than Scott and Sarah, and I restarted my fucking solo.
Oh, my God. No.
I learned my scales the week of